Hello there, one and all. We have made it, folks. It's episode 599 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. The next one is the big one, 600, and I will say one final time, it's going to be an interview with a very, very special mystery guest, 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday, the 12th of November, right here. And I probably won't actually reveal who it is until I reveal them. I won't even put it in the video description. Alex is here for this episode saying, "Oh my god, Pour Monsieur, I love it. I have a few drops of the vintage left," says Alex as well. If you haven't, thank you very much for that comment, treasure that vintage. If you haven't already subscribed to this channel, please do consider doing so. Click on the little bell so that you get notifications about future videos heading your way. And if you would like to find out how you can support my work, you should be able to see a link to my Ko-fi page in the video description below, as well as to my Substack. Tomorrow, sneak preview for you tomorrow on the Substack. An extended interview with François Henin of Jevoy about the revamp of his brand and also the launch of his brand new perfume called Halong Bay, inspired by his time in Vietnam. Anyway, these two classics here are celebrating big anniversaries this year. So Caron's Troisième Homme turned 40 this year. And Chanel's Pour Monsieur is the grand old age of 70 this year. And I thought we could just have a bit of fun smelling them. So we're not going to get overly serious about this. I think let's go backwards. Let's start with the Caron. I realise that I have never sort of formally reviewed it, I don't think, on this channel. I may have included it in lists. Congrats on 599. Thank you very much, Yvette. I think maybe what we'll do is we'll do episode 601 as an Ask Me Anything if things go according to plan. So start thinking of some questions. Anyway, I don't think I've sort of formally reviewed Troisième Homme. And it's very, very unfair of me because it is beautiful. It's one of the all-time great masculines, certainly one of the great all-time masculines of the 80s. And it highlights that sort of fairly short-lived style we had of masculines in the 80s that played with quite kind of conventional masculine olfactory codes on the one hand, but also pumped them full of quite gentle, quite delicate, quite tender florals. I should actually spray as we're talking, because it's not like this is going to be a review. This is a fairly old bottle. I checked before coming on the air that Troisième Homme is still part of the Caron lineup, and I'm pleased to say that it is, but I have no idea what shape it's in. I haven't even lately smelt, the original Pour un Homme, which was always like one of the all-time absolute great, could not be beaten lavender compositions. I think I'm right in saying that this was called the third masculine, because the second one was Yataghan from the 70s. Again, really, really interesting piece of work. And I don't wear this enough. So yeah, this is a fairly old-ish bottle. I managed to pick it up on my travels in France many, many years ago now. Current Narcisse Noir is beautiful, says Alex. Okay, that's very, very good to know. Xabi says, I definitely ask them what they think about perfumery as it nowadays and how they think it'll change in the future. But who are we talking about, though? Do you mean me or whoever's coming on? Well, you could probably ask the person coming on Wednesday that question. Need to try Troisième Homme, says Omar. Always feared it'd be challenging or too 80s musky. Okay, well, it does feel like something of the past when I smell it now, so maybe one day I should actually smell the current version to see if they've somehow tried to make it a little bit more contemporary. Hopefully they haven't. And that description that I gave you a few minutes ago is accurate, because I think it's got a really, really beautiful jasmine note in there somewhere, and a very, very convincing kind of jasmine note. But it's also doing the fougère thing, with aromatics and lavender and a big, big, big slug of quite authoritative woods in the base. And these sorts of scents really bridged the transition from the 70s to the 90s, I think. In the 70s, men's scents were still, well, generally speaking, okay, because we can't, generalizations only take us so far, but generally speaking, the 70s style for men was all about brut, very, very classic fougère. Nothing wrong with those, especially if you can get your hands on a good quality bottle of original Brut. I mean, it's amazing. It actually makes you realize how unfairly we malign the Fougère, because when the Fougère is done well, it is just gorgeous. It's heartbreaking, which actually makes me think I must smell whatever is currently being sold as Yves Saint Laurent Rive Gauche Pour Homme, because that was a really, really great Fougère, very much in the style of Brut. But Troisième Homme, I think, is very much like, for example, Guerlain's Derby, which I think also turns 40 this year. There's my, I don't know if you can see, you should be able to see it. There's my tiny little mini of Derby in there. And I'm being a bit silly keeping it there because the juice that's in there is actually in pretty good condition. So really, I ought to be keeping it in the fridge or something. Derby also did this, kind of great big huge resinous leathery I have broad shoulders and I go to the gym type thing, but it also had a tender heart, and I guess that's what then paved the way for the more genteel sensibilities of L'Odyssée Pour Homme, and the kind of gender neutral, non-gender specific sense of the 90s. I say more genteel, if you sort of smell, it's weird what's happened with L'Odyssée Pour Homme and also L'Odyssée for women, because they actually now seem quite loud, quite strident, but save that for another time. Would recommend current formulation Akiko Kamei. Right, okay, now it's interesting that you've brought that up because I didn't know who this person was. Okay, so is that who is being credited as the creator of the current formulation? Okay, that explains it, because I always thought that this was a Françoise Caron scent, but I guess Akiko Kamei is the person who's done the current one. Okay, well, I'm pleased that that has been cleared up, because I was looking it up, doing a little bit of pre-broadcast research, thinking I have no idea who this perfumer is, and I didn't know that she'd made the original Troisième Homme, but I guess she didn't do the original. Actually, Settle says it's not musky at all. The only animalic quality comes from the dry down of the clove. It is wonderful. I have got pre-sprayed blotters as well, so we can smell those in a minute. Maria King says, I wear, what's that? Ivre de Liberté by Caron when I need to be cool, composed and powerful at work. And Peroli says Rive Gauche is long discontinued in all formulations. Oh, that's a shame. I didn't know that. I thought it was still available in some form from YSL. That is really a shame. But I'm talking about the men's one, right? Same perfumer as Oyedo from Diptyque, says actually Settle. Okay. It's... I don't know how this was received when it came out. I don't know what Caron's standing was, certainly on the international scene, when this came out in 85. At the time, I was living in the Middle East, and the brands that people were talking about then were very much like, your Chanel's and your Dior's and your Lancome's. Guerlain, I don't think, had made it to Dubai yet in the mid-80s, and Caron wasn't a brand that I was particularly aware of. It would be really, really fascinating to know how this did. Was it seen as just being too floral for men then? Because now we smell it and we think it's a bit too woody, but it's very, very nicely done, and it reminds you that you can do woodiness convincingly without resorting to those mind-numbing woody ambers. So seek out Troisième Homme. You try and seek out Troisième Homme. I will try to seek out the current version, and maybe we'll do a sort of before and after. Going back a few more years, going back 70 years, Unrehearsed Chanel Pour Monsieur. I mean, this is an all-time classic in so many ways. Classic masculine, classic chypre in many ways, and this bottle is very, very special to me. I don't know if I've ever told this story, but very, very quickly, back in the very, very early days of Persolaise, the website, persolaise.com, was just a few weeks old. We happened to have gone to Istanbul for a very brief holiday, very brief break, and that infamous, I should spray whilst I'm talking, and the infamous Icelandic volcano erupted, and all the flights were cancelled, etc., etc. I'm sure a lot of you remember that. And we decided we had to come back for work, and we decided that we would try and come back by train all the way to Britain from Istanbul. I need to write about that one day, because that was a journey and a half. And so, cut a bit of a long story short, we made it to Calais, from where we were going to catch the ferry to Dover. And I thought, I need to buy a perfume which will always help me remember this epic journey and this feeling of arriving at Calais and thinking, okay, we've made it. So I went into a perfumery there. It must have been like a chain, it was either a Douglas or a Marionneau or something. Calais was a very, very different town in 2010. It's changed a lot since then. And of course I ummed and ahed, and I tried this and I tried that, and I thought, oh my God, I was in middle school back then, says Xabi. Well, there you go. And I thought, well, I really, really like Pour Monsieur. I haven't got Pour Monsieur in my collection. It needs to be Pour Monsieur. So this is it. So this isn't like, vintage. It's from 2010. But maybe it had been hanging around there on the shelves for a little while. So I think we can safely assume that, we can assume that it's at least 15 years old. Maybe it's 16 or 17 years old. Current version is still good, says Paroli. Well, I need to try it. I was never a huge fan of basically, I think the EDP that they did, the more concentrated version. For me, this one was always the one. Really, scents don't get much better than this. It is the epitome of sophistication. Now, I shouldn't really cross-reference to other videos, because it's not going to make sense for people who are, watching the recording. And most people do watch the recording. Most people do not watch live. But the first video I did this evening was a review of 4 new extrays for men from Brioni. And all 4 of those are sort of fine, but they had a heaviness to them. They had a kind of staid, conservative quality, which I described as lacking in excitement. This is a scent that was composed in 1955, okay? Doubtless it's been changed, doubtless it has been changed in that intervening time, but the basic structure is there, and it is a kind of classic inky green chypre, beautiful mossy note, very, very abstract, nice citrus thing happening at the top, sort of citrus uplift. It feels like it's of its time, but it also feels like it could have been made yesterday. It is timeless, and it also has movement in it, and it has suaveness. And yes, it's in many ways stereotypically masculine, and it could also be part of that board meeting that I described as being, the Brioni extrait context. But this would be far and away superior to all of those other 4, because it's just intriguing. It pulls you in. It pulls you in with its greenness. It pulls you in with its clary sage note. Just when you think you've figured it out, something comes along that is, again, maybe a touch floral. There's a very, very kind of gentle, leathery quality to it. And then in the background, kind of anchoring it all, this silvery, metallic, foresty mossiness. I mean, it's just genius. It's really, really beautiful. I prefer the EDT, says Alex. And I just want to see what the official notes are for this, because I'm not sure I've ever looked at it. Lemon, neroli, and orange. Okay, yeah, lemon, absolutely. Then basil, cardamom, ginger, and coriander. See, I would have sworn there was clary sage in there as well, but ginger makes sense too. And then oak moss, vetiver, and cedarwood. It's so good. Right, we will finish by doing the pre-sprayed. I almost don't need to do pre-sprayed of these ones. I haven't labelled them, but it'll be very easy to work out which is which. Okay, so this is the Chanel. Just so gently, unassumingly, but unmistakably authoritative. And the Caron. Yeah, the Caron is more 80s. It's compared to the Chanel, it's more brash. Compared to today's perfumes, it's not brash at all, but it's got, I suppose, that slightly more synthetic 80s edge to it, probably because of the woody notes. But it's great, it's wonderful, and if these 2 guys met, they'd probably get on like a house on fire, and they'd look at the Brioni boys and kind of think, wow, those guys are trying a bit too hard and need to get out a bit more and just let their receding hairline down a bit more, if that isn't a too mixed up an analogy. Okay. Happy anniversary to the Caron and the Chanel. Thank you very much for watching, folks. All being well, fingers crossed. Pray for no technological issues. I will see you at 3:30 UK time on Wednesday. Thanks very much for watching. Bye now.